Hello, hello, you guys. Welcome to Trendy with Kim Allison. Thank you so much for tuning in. And just so you know, it means a lot. Your views, your engagement, your subscribing to the YouTube channel, your listening wherever you listen to your podcast, your likes, your comments. I would like more of those just so I know that it's resonating with you guys. I started to do these little intros because I just want to give you a little taste, because sometimes when you do long form, you can't really capture the attention of your audience for long. And, I've noticed when I listen back to these episodes that I talk so freaking slow. I don't know. I don't know why I talk slow. I think I am trying not to mess up. I'm trying not to mispronounce words. I'm trying to enunciate everything properly for you guys. Maybe you don't even care. I don't even know, right? But I am doing my best, so I'm going to try to just blow through this as quickly as I can. Today's guest is Laura Gunter. She's out of Atlanta, Georgia. You'll hear the formal interview once the episode starts, but I wanted to just give you a takeaway that she's probably one of the most underrated stylists on the Instagram right now. I am telling you, she is a full, well-rounded stylist living her best life in this industry. I'm telling you, she is a full-time stylist working behind the chair every day. She is a long-time educator for Matrix. She does education for Ulta Beauty. She does marketing campaigns for Ulta Beauty. She does editorial work. She works with some of the top stylists in our industry. Anyway, you guys, I'm not going to ramble on because I want you to listen to her episode where we'll dig into everything and it'll all make sense. So, again, thank you for tuning in. Enjoy the show.
I'm Laura Gunter, and you're listening to the Trendy with Kim Allison show.
Welcome back to another episode of Trendy with Kim Allison. Today, I am thrilled to introduce you guys to an incredibly talented stylist from Atlanta, Georgia, Laura Gunter. Laura has carved out a unique space in the beauty industry, specializing in textured, curly, and editorial hair while working with a diverse, multicultural clientele. Her journey is truly inspiring. She's not only a master of her craft, but also an award winning, dedicated educator, helping stylists across the globe learn the art of working with all types of hair. So, are you ready to get inspired? Let's get inspired, everybody. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
No, you're welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on my show.
I'm so excited to be here with you.
Oh, thank you so much. So let's get right into your story and your journey. How did you initially get into the world of hairstyling? Tell
You
us.
know, hair was kind of my backup plan. I had a big dream of being a fashion designer when I left high school. So I was going to go to fashion school, and I don't know how I didn't realize how expensive college was, but I had this panic attack about like paying for college and being in student loan debt with especially for something that's a really volatile industry like the fashion industry, it can be difficult to break into. So I thought I'll just go to hair school as like a way to pay my way through school. So it was a suggestion of a friend of mine. We're still friends. We've been both doing hair now for 20, almost 20 years professionally. And we had already done each other's hair for like 5, 10 years. So it was kind of like, well, why don't you just go to school and you can use that, then you can pay your way through college. And I think I looked up like 5 years later and I was managing a hair salon and I saw someone I went to high school with and they were like, weren't you gonna be a fashion designer? And I was like, "Oh, I forgot." So I was just having so much fun doing hair that, I really hadn't even given any thought to doing something else, which is cool because over the years I've gotten to work with New York Fashion Week and do some really cool things, style my own photo shoots and things like that. So I still get to play in the fashion world a little bit.
I find that interesting that I feel like more of us have that same journey really, such as myself. I went to Arizona State University and majored in textiles and clothing
That's
because
so cool.
my first love was fashion, but I became a young, mother, and so I had
Uh-huh.
to reroute, but I still think I ended up in the beauty industry just the same, and I was
Mhm.
able to express myself with through fashion working behind the chair, so that's kind of fun.
Yeah, that's so cool. I think it's just that transformational aspect,
Mhm.
right? The right outfit can just light someone up, and I feel like the hair can do the same thing for someone. So it's just another facet of that same industry.
Yes, and we know hair mimics fashion. They go hand in
Mhm.
hand. You don't have one without the other. And
Absolutely, I agree.
I don't know how many people I think there are a lot of people that don't realize that when
Mhm.
you can easily spot what the trend is for hair when you look at fashion and vice versa.
Oh, absolutely. I am always watching the fashion shows still. I'm very much like a fashion girly still. So I watch New York Fashion Week. I watch the runway shows on YouTube. I get really excited when new collections come out, and I get excited to see what the stylists are doing on the runway too. Yeah, that's
What
exciting.
drew you specifically to specialize in textured and curly hair and do editorial work? Has curly hair influenced your specialty, or was it more of a result of the environment you're in being in Atlanta?
So that's an interesting story. I've always been really drawn to curly hair, and I always wanted to learn more about all types of hair, right? So in
Mhm.
school, I really wanted to learn how to use like a traditional Marcel stove because like I never wanted to say no to anybody. Like it's a big thing for me. I just want to be able to say yes to everybody.
Yes.
And not for finance, it started really for financial reasons, right? Like I didn't want to miss a dollar. I wanted to be able to get every person in my chair and say yes. And that's really where everything started with me. Was started for financial reasons. And when I moved to Atlanta from a very small town in Alabama where towns the salons are still very much sort of segregated, right? If you've
Segregated.
got
Mhm.
white hair, you go to a
Mhm.
white salon.
Yep.
So I didn't have a ton of opportunities to explore that, but moving to Atlanta, I had the opportunity to work with one of my most influential mentors in my life, which is Pakila Riley. And she's an amazing texture hair artist. She owns a hair extension brand called True and Pure Texture. She has worked with celebrities and she took me under her wing. She could see my enthusiasm to learn. And I wanted to learn more about curly and coily hair just because I knew it was a place where I would need to have a skill set in order to thrive as a stylist in the Atlanta market, right? I knew my clientele was going to look more different and I wanted to be able to service them. And so it's interesting because it started from a financial motivation, but I was in it, I was just like loving the versatility of the fabric of curlier and coilier hair. And I learned so much about this journey of women of color and their hair and how we talked a lot about Tequila and I talked a lot about how women of color are trained that their hair they have to be tough and the hair is painful and beauty is pain, and it was a huge tenet of hers that beauty services should not be painful, and so it's a huge tenet of mine now that beauty services should not be painful. So I am a meticulous detangler, and that it has been that was where it started. And then so that started 2018, 2019 as I was moving into Atlanta. And then of course when 2020 hit and we were at home and then George Floyd, that happened, and
Yeah.
all of these uh, uh, things started coming out. It just my journey got even deeper, and I started learning more about my privilege as a white person and where that has a role in this place of what I do. I'm happy to I have a lot of, questions from guests when they call and they ask, you do my hair? And then they see me and they might have feelings about it and I have feelings about it. And their feelings are totally valid and they're there for a reason and they're allowed to feel anything that they want to feel. And if they don't want me to do their hair, then that's fine. And I've had people who've had feelings about me educating people about curly and coily hair the people that I'm trying to reach, and I always try to make sure that I'm clear about it, is I'm not trying to educate anyone who has curly and coily hair about their hair. I'm trying to educate people that look like me who might be intimidated or don't know where to start or don't know how to find this education, and to say, "Hey, look, if I can do it, little girl from small town in Alabama, if yeah, I can do it, then you can do it, and anyone can, because no one should ever be turned away from a salon because the stylist doesn't know how to perform the service. You should have a basic rudimentary education about styling, cutting, coloring curly and coily hair. Every
Oh
stylist
my
should.
gosh, you just said a word. I got full chills from a couple of things you said that I want to unpack here. You said something, Laura, about beauty shouldn't be painful, and that as Black women, we are from day one told by our mothers and our grandmothers and our aunties that pain is beauty, girl. You got to
Beauty
sit
is
there
pain,
and don't be tenderheaded and all these
right?
things. And you're right. And so that's a conditioning. That is something that you just go in, brace yourself for. And the fact that you said you take the extra time with that certain nuance to detangle the hair properly, which is something a lot of Black stylists don't even do. So I appreciate you for saying that, for sharing that, and for bringing light to that. And
Hmm.
another thing I want to tap on what you said about ethnic hair, and maybe they come in and they see a white stylist and think, can you do my hair? Well, let me share a little part of my journey with you. And being a Black stylist who does not specialize, I do Black hair because I have Black hair myself.
Hmm. Right.
And however, I don't identify as a Black hairstylist. I'm a stylist who happens to be Black.
Hmm.
So I got a lot of heat from my community in that, well, she doesn't do our hair. Who is our? I do not like that. I thought
Yeah.
I'm going to single handedly change the mindset that just because you're Black, you can't do any other texture. And just because you're white, you can't do any other texture. That
Hmm.
is a choice that you make.
Hmm.
That is not where you have to be.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's a fact, and no one should have to have a 20-question phone interview to find out if their stylist is going to be capable of doing their hair. You've seen it from the flip side where stylists, have been, just because they are the same race, that they're not technically capable of completing the service the way they need to. And I have seen it from the side of they've had people that look like me do their hair and they've walked away unsatisfied from the service. And I always tell my guests what my limitations are. I'm not a braider. Like, I can braid, but not to the point and skill of where I need to be to ask a guest to pay me. I practice my braiding skills, but braiding is such an artistry. I put braiding and barbering at the same level of like skill and artistry. Like, I'm not a braider, I'm not a barber. So I'm
Yep.
not going to be able to give you the fate of your life, and I'm not going to give you your micros. Like, I can do it, but not to the point where you're just going to be like, okay, I'm this is not it. So
And I
um
think,
I,
wouldn't you say
you
that's
know
hair in general?
I'd
You
say
know,
so for
yeah,
sure,
it's really not ethnic specific. It's more of those skill sets just
Mhm.
are specialties now. You have amazing, incredible braid artists. And so compared to them, you're like, well, my little janky braid, it I feel inferior compared to
Yeah.
the there's the meticulousness of what they're doing with braiding
Mhm.
and hair. Yeah, so that's amazing. How is working in Atlanta, a city with such a strong Black community, shaped your clientele and approach to textured hair? And that's just us digging just a little bit deeper. Did you choose Atlanta or did Atlanta choose you?
Atlanta very much chose me. We moved here for my husband's work, and I love it. I love how diverse my clientele is. I love meeting people from all countries. I have African clients who are white. I have African clients who are black. I have clients from the Middle East. I have clients from every corner of the world. And it's so exciting to me to see that difference. So, and curly hair doesn't just live on one skin tone, right? So curly and coily hair or one ethnicity, it goes beyond that spectrum. I think something like 70 or 80% of the world have some sort of curl or coil to their hair. So that it really straight hair has become the minority. And even if a stylist clientele doesn't include those people now, in the next 20 years, they will be. So it's because more and more people are identifying as biracial and mixed race. So it's we're going to see hair get curlier and curlier. And so that's why I encourage people, if I do have a stylist who tells me, well, that's not my clientele. It's like not necessary for me. It can be your clientele, and you get to decide what your clientele looks like. And I guarantee you that you have people who sit in your chair that you look at them and you think their hair is straight and it's not.
Right.
I thought my hair was straight for a long time, and my hair is very wavy. And it really wasn't until 2020 that I even learned how to care for my own hair properly and how to style my hair without depending on a straightener or a flat iron, or a blow dryer. I mostly air dry or diffuse my hair now. I couldn't tell you where my concentrator is for my personal blow dryer.
No, I love your curl. And someday we'll look at just hair as hair and just take the ethnicity all the way out of the picture. Wouldn't that be just a perfect, beautiful world?
Uh, from a purely technical standpoint, I agree with you, but I also don't want to take away from the fact that there is a whole cultural significance to, different ethnicities of hair that can't be looked over and can't be erased. But from a technical standpoint, as a technician who performs hair services for a living, absolutely, I agree with you.
And let me add an extension to that of what I said, while also embracing and celebrating the culture.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
pretty much where I was coming from. If you could
Mm-hmm.
just have somebody come in and just embrace the beauty of who they are and say, okay, well, you've got curly hair, you've got straight hair, you've got long
Mm-hmm.
hair, you've got short hair, yours is brunette, yours is blonde. If you could just see the hair first and then embrace the culture behind the hair
Mm-hmm.
as a technician, to your point, that, because when we're in beauty school, we don't unpack that really. It's just you tap on it.
Right.
Okay. And then there's black people. Oh, and then if you happen to get an Asian person, then this is what you'll have to deal with. Oh, and then by the way, and then the rest is just static from there, more
Mm-hmm.
European hair focused, and all
Right.
of the things, the nuances and the things that European hair what you're going to run into as far as bleaching it, as far as cutting, as far as whatever, right? And a lot of people, to your point, most people have some type of texture to their hair. I would say
Yes.
80% of the clients who sit in my chair rather, have texture in their hair. They just
Mm-hmm.
get rid of it through blow drying and straightening.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I agree 100% with everything that you're saying.
While we're on this topic, before we move completely on, this is a sensitive but important question that could resonate with stylists looking to branch into, specialties outside of their backgrounds. Can you share your journey and any challenges you faced in mastering textured hair as a stylist who isn't part of the Black community, being that you're in a predominantly Black city like Atlanta?
Sure. I think gaining trust is a huge part of it. Um, Especially if you're someone you're wanting to learn more about curly and coily hair and you're like, I don't want to just approach someone who I've never done their type of hair before and get them to pay me for a service. Take classes, work with models. We know that social media is a way where guests find us, right? And if you're that potential guest, that person with curly or coily hair, does not see themselves reflected on your social media when they're looking and they're interviewing for a new hairstylist, then they're not going to choose you. If you don't see someone that, even if that person doesn't look like you, if you don't see people that look like you on their social media page, then you're going to be less inclined to go to that person, right? So that's why I try to make sure my social media page has a very diverse group of people. I try to look to see who's missing on my grid, and
Mhm.
that's who I'm looking for next. So, gathering models, going to classes, and getting more education and showcasing that education, that you're getting that education and that you're moving through this with some sort of ease, that you can talk to guests about using language that they're comfortable with. So if I typically am using language like 3A, 3B, 3C, then a lot of guests who are have curly hair, they feel more comfortable with me because I'm using language they understand. So I try to match my language to whatever language they're using. Typically tend to speak to, coily, curly, wavy. But if they're using words like, yeah, my hair's a 3C, then that's the language I'm going to use, because I want them to understand that I know the language they're using and that I am comfortable meeting them where they're at, and not just forcing them to use the language I'm comfortable with.
Well, kudos to Andre, Oprah's longtime stylist, for coming up
Yes.
with that system in the first place. But for
Mm-hmm.
guests that may not be familiar with what you're referring to, I happen to be familiar, but can you go over what all of those tiers are, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I refer to a number and a letter like 3A, 2B, those are what I'm looking at. One, two, three, and four. This is a system, as you said, that was created by Oprah Winfrey's hairstylist. One being straight, two being wavy, three being curly, and four being coily. And then A, B, and C refer to the degrees of curl to the hair. So if a hair is extremely straight, very, very straight, no bend or movement, that's going to be a 1A degree of straightness. The curliest, coily hair that is the tightest texture that lives close to the head, that curl pattern is going to be a 4C. So you have from the straightest of the straight to the curliest of the curly, and it's a way to designate, the same way we designate with hair color, if something is a level 10 ash or a level 5 um, gold. It's the same way that we designate inside of hair color that we are designating inside of curl to coil. And it's not a universal chart, but it's the closest thing that we have to a universal curl chart.
No, I think that was a great explanation. Thank you. I'm sure
Hmm.
those watching will now they'll appreciate and go, now, you can do your own research and possibly bring that to your salon when you're working behind the chair, just so it gives you that much more credibility and making people who maybe don't look like you feel comfortable in that you know what you're talking about.
Right. And then I have to always say this because it's just something that gets tied together a lot. But that curl degree of curliness has nothing to do with if your hair is fine, medium, or coarse. I'll have people say, "Yeah, my hair's so curly. It's 4A. It's just so coarse." And then I'm looking at it. I'm like, "Your hair is finer than mine. Like my hair is very coarse. You could sew your clothes with my hair. It's very coarse. The strands themselves are very large, but they are not very curly." And typically, what I see is that the curlier the hair is, in some cases, the finer it is, and the more fragile. And I think that people think they see dark and they see curly, and they go, "This hair needs aggressive products. It needs aggressive lightning. It needs aggressive heat," and that's not the case. So I urge your guests, your followers, and your viewers to think about those two things separately: the degree of curliness and the is the hair fine, medium, or coarse? Those are really two separate conversations and two separate characteristics of the hair.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what those letters are for.
Hmm.
The letters are for identifying the level of course, or the level of just kinkiness, if you will, the A, B, C, D. The numbers are, I would say, the curl pattern. and then the letters are to the varying degrees of said curl pattern. That's the best way I can explain it. Having worked with a multicultural clientele myself, I want to hear from you advice you would give stylists who want to expand their skills to work with all hair textures, such as training, practice, and the mindset needed to be inclusive in their skill sets.
Well, I talked a little bit about it already, but the one part of your question I really want to zero in is the mindset, right? Because I think that, especially those of us who have a specialty, right? You have something, I used to specialize primarily in vivid fashion hair color. And that was all I did, was a lot of like bright pinks and crazy colors and huge transformations. And I, in order to let myself be good at something new, I had to let myself be bad at it first. And I don't think that as hairstylists, we're very good at letting ourselves be bad at something. Many of us tend to be perfectionists. We want it to get it right and we want to get it perfect. And if we can't get it perfect or right the first time, often we will just give up and just go back and revert to something that we are good at. So, um, give yourself the permission to fail because my first rod set was not beautiful. My first Bantu knot was not beautiful, you know? So I had to give myself that permission to learn and to humble myself and go, you know what? This is not going to be photo finish perfect. It's not going to be gorgeous. But I'm going to learn something from it. And the next one's going to be better, and allow myself to have that progression that I probably hadn't had since, beauty school, um, because it was just a totally new skill set for me.
No, great point. Thank you so much for sharing that. And me, someone 29 years in, just, I have divided myself. I send my clients to curly hair specialist. Now, I like to work with hair in its natural state, but I do
Hmm.
not like to style it in its natural state. And
Hmm.
I have realized I know my lane and I always crash when I go in that lane. So I'm like, let me get back into the lane. That's the smooth road for me. And that's just something that I've chosen to do in this multifaceted world that we're a part of, where there's so many different approaches and techniques and hair textures and colors. And you really can niche down if you so choose once you're further along in your journey. You
Oh,
know, once you have established a clientele, obviously it's easier to do that. Whereas for new stylists who are my babies, who are my audience, you may want to try your hands at everything and just see what you fall in love with and try to farm that while not losing sight that you have all these other beautiful techniques that you can also add to your menu.
oh yeah. I will say that when it comes to specializing, I say that I specialize in curly and coily hair because it is what I love to do the most, right? Is the thing that lights me up and the thing that I can talk to you about for hours. When it comes to coloring, cutting, styling, I'm not a departmentalized salon. So I do everything, so I'm creating the hair color, I'm doing the hair cutting, and I am doing the styling myself. So I that is my passion, and that's why I call it a specialty. It is not the only thing that I do. If you don't wear your hair straight, I do a ton of silk presses in the salon. I do a lot of guests who have straight hair, and I do a lot of just gray root touch-ups, and I do it all. I do pixie cuts, I do everything, but really the reason why I call it my specialty is that because that's what I love doing and what I
Yeah, and I
want to
think
attract.
for sure.
So
And I
I
think
don't
that's all the word specialty means. It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
mean that it's all we do. It just means that that's kind of what we love to do. And
right,
to your point, that's what, if you have that all day long, you be happy. That's all that
sure.
means. And
Yeah.
that said, that's a great segue into what you actually do. Proof is in the pudding, right, you guys? And her work is amazing, and we're going to share that work here. And also, let's add, Laura, you also do editorial styling. Talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get into showing our guests some of your amazing works.
Thank you. Yes, I love editorial work. I think that comes from my love of fashion, that I love looking in fashion magazines like Vogue and seeing the beautiful spreads, and that gets me really excited. So I do a lot of work with photographers and some of, just for their work and their portfolios, and then some for my own as well. So that's my own passion project. I've had the great fortune of being a finalist for the North American Hairstyling Awards. And additionally, thank you, won Team of the Year twice with two separate teams. And then I have won Texture Style Awards, which is Monet's event that she holds in New York. I've won two awards for coily hair down style and wavy hair up style. And I won Behind the Chair Big Shot for styling and finishing, I believe was the category for that one. So I love doing all, like I said, all types of hair, but I love to see a fully composed image, the wardrobe, the hair, the makeup, the styling, and I love to see it all come together. So that's why I really love doing editorial work.
Are you ready to see some of Laura's works? Let's get into it. Okay, Laura, can
um,
you share your inspiration behind this beautiful creation and a little
yes.
bit more for us?
First of all, isn't she so cute? She's
So
just a
cute.
doll. This was one of my models for Premiere Orlando, I believe, this year. Or it might have been ABS Chicago. Sometimes the show season, it all runs together and it's hard to remember who was who or where was where. So, the inspiration for her hair was cowboy copper, right? We know that was such a big trend this year. And I just wanted to talk about I created a dimensional copper technique using demi-permanent color. She had a lot of lightness living in her hair already, but it was very orangey and gold and brassy, and I wanted to bring some earthiness and some rustiness back to it. So this was actually originally a color story for the stage, and then I created this beautiful finish for her, for her finish look for this photo that you're seeing. So this is all her natural curl. I think there might have been one or two pieces that I ended up having to touch up because her set kind of came apart in the night a little bit, maybe on a couple of ends. But I would say 99.9% of this is all her natural curl finish. She just has gorgeous hair. It's a beautiful heart shaped silhouette. I did a little bit of curl shaping on her cut, but nothing dramatic, just anything that needed just a tiny touch up. And that is this one, Cowboy Copper.
Yeah, so this one, when you say this is her natural curl, is this a wash and go? Have you manipulated this? I know you said you did a little touch here and there, but for the most part, is she washing
I
the
want to
sheen,
say,
and when it dries, it's this? Or
no, I think
doing?
this might have
What
been
is
a
happening?
twist out. This might have been a twist out. It's like I said, it's been a minute since I did this. So I'd have to go back and look at my images or like any behind the scenes stuff that I caught. But I'm almost sure that we did a twist out on her. I can't remember
Oh,
exactly though, but
yeah.
it
I mean, and
it
only
wasn't a wash and go though.
yeah, only because you have people watching who may have this texture or something similar. And so
Mhm.
we always, assume, I always do, but I don't realize until I have people sit behind the chair and they bring a photo with this finish in, can my hair do this? Is always the question that people want to know.
Right.
And then you're
I'm
like, well, yes, it
yes,
can.
and right, but do you have the same density? Do you have like this? She does not have any extensions in her hair. That's the number one thing usually I find when someone brings me a photograph is that they want their hair to do that, but I'm like that person's hair doesn't even do that. That's 80% extensions. That's there's a lot going on behind the scenes, if you will. And this was for a photo, so I may have even propped up some of the hair from the back to give it an even more dramatic silhouette. I don't think I did in this one. I do that sometimes, and I try to share that and be transparent about it because it's like you want to make sure you're being real with people about what it is. I'm just trying to remember if this was a wash and go or if it might have been a wash and go. Her hair, if you go to her Instagram, this is what pretty much what her natural curl will look like. So,
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's
I don't
clear
think I had to do
that
a lot of manipulation.
yeah, I don't it doesn't look like you have to do a lot of manipulation, and I appreciate you disclosing that you push the hair all the way from the back into the front sometimes, because
Mhm.
we're seeing a lot of that with these transformations of, all the layering, the 90s inspired layering is back, and you have people that give you an after photo and everything, literally everything is
Like
pulled from the back and pushed
this.
from the front. Even at the bottom,
And they're,
the
like, leaning
yeah,
forward, and
they
they're
go
taking
like
a photo
this.
from down here.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, not quite. All of that density, a lot of it is coming from the back. So it's important that we point those things out. Now
Yeah.
let's get into this. Oh my God, I am so excited for you to talk about what you did here. I mean, completely editorial.
Yes. So this is, like, a complete opposite of what the last picture was. 90% of this is a wig and hair extensions and then her natural hair. So her natural, and then I manipulated the wig texture to match her natural texture to make it all blend together. So some of the extensions were not as curly, so I had to tightly curl them. The wig was very curly, but the image the photographer gave me was very specific. He wanted like Shaka Khan, like beautiful, big Diana Ross hair, right? And I was like, okay, great. Let's just do something. And I whipped this up in like I would say an hour. I took a wig and I pinned it in backwards and upside down to create as much volume and texture as possible. And the only reason I used more extensions was because of the color. So the wig, her hair was all dark and the wig had a lot of color, like honey colored highlights. So I had to add then in some of the honey colored highlights into the rest of her hair. And then he just created this beautiful backlit silhouette. And it's just one of my favorite images I've ever created. It's beautiful. Um, just objectively beautiful image that I'm just really proud of personally.
That I think that is so clever. And how did you even come up with that? Is that something you learned, or is that just part of your creative brain?
I'm sure I've heard someone do it somewhere at some point. There are no original ideas, but I just knew the wig that I had it wasn't very long and it wasn't very layered, and I knew that when I looked at the wig that the underneath of it was the shortest point, and then the top of it was at the longest point. So I was like, well, if I flip this upside down, it's going to give me a much more layered silhouette without me having to change the wig. And because when you invest in something like a wig that's human hair and very long and full, 250% density, it's, full lace, you don't want to be cutting on that wig if you can avoid it. So I was just like, how else can I use this wig that I had gotten for another project? This was a true and pure texture wig, by the way. Shout out to Tequila. And I just wanted to use it in a different way and get the most out of it. So I was like, let me just flip it around and see how that works. And I just pushed all her hair forward and clipped and pinned it into the back to give us more length, and then popped in extensions around the front to balance the color and make it look similar.
Oh my gosh, I mean, you can't tell you did any of that. Just your finished product your eyes just gravitate straight to the hair, even though it's almost a background of her silhouette, you know.
Yeah, this was very
Almost
much not
the
supposed to be a hair. Yeah, it wasn't supposed to be a hair shoot, but I felt like the hair was the star of this one. Sometimes the hair is the star and sometimes it's the supporting actor, but she stole the show for sure.
My word, beautiful. I love it. And then you said, shout out to the company that you bought the wig from. Can you
Yes.
say that slowly for the people in the back, please, so that
Yes.
I can promote her
It's
page?
Of course, it's True and Pure Texture, and that is Tequila Riley's hair brand. And the straightest texture she makes is something called a relaxed natural. So even the straightest texture is meant to mimic hair that has been relaxed, curly hair that's been relaxed. So it's a purely texture extension line, and the quality is very good. I lightened the wig myself, and it held up very well. And I used it for another shoot for the North American Hairstyling Awards.
Okay,
And
so
I
when you're doing editorial work, you
mhm,
actually purchase all of these things and you're
mhm.
able to interchange them with other shoots and
Yeah.
projects that you're working on. Yeah, I
So
always
yeah.
people that work with mannequins, like they do tutorials on mannequins and those very high end, expensive mannequin heads. And I always wonder, like, wow, either you're getting those for free at some point, or I know one guest, he actually does get them for free, but
I'm sure if you have a large following, then that company will probably sponsor you to use their, because that's like the number my friends who have large followings that do um like techniques on mannequins, they get sponsored a lot by the company that makes them, because the number one question in their videos is where are these wigs or where are these heads from, where do you get these heads, and so it drives a lot of business then to that brand. So
I love it.
yeah.
Oh, okay. I saved this one for last of the images, at least, because stunning. This
Yeah.
is so creative. I just see so many things that make me smile when I look at this picture.
Hmm.
Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so this was the one that won the behind the chair big shot for editorial. It was for styling and finishing, I believe. And this was also a part of a set I did for the North American Hairstyling Awards. It did not get nominated, but that's okay. Um, I am so immensely proud of doing this. Now, I would say this is 99% her hair. There's a little bit of that purple at the ponytail that is hair that I integrated to into that, just to have a little bit of fashion color to create something interesting without changing the model's hair, because sometimes these some of the models that we work with, we can't necessarily change their hair because they have existing contracts with brands and things where they have to stay a certain color. So I just integrated that to achieve some color without changing her hair.
And this was one that I would just assume of all that this would be the one full of extensions. So that's
She just
interesting.
has a ton of hair.
That's
She has so
beautiful.
much hair. Yeah.
Yeah, and can you walk us through, like, start to finish on a project like this or a end result like this? Where do you start? The hair comes
Mhm.
in washed and ready, blown dry, and what do we do from here?
So you've got to make sure that the hair fabric feels like a starch cotton shirt, right? So if the hair is too soft, then it's not going to hold any structure. And if the hair is feels too coarse, then it's not going to move. So I think of all hair like in terms of fabric. What do I need to do? Her hair is pretty medium. It's not super coarse. It's not super fine. She has insane density. So much hair. So really, what we did was to map out the sectioning first. How much of the hair do we want to see down? I'm working off of mood board images and looking at her hairline. How much of hair do we want to see left out around the face? What do we want to do at the top? And then we're moving into, I will put mousse into dry hair to help to build in some malleability into the hair so it will hold shape. So a little bit of mousse dried into the hair, curling the hair, uh, usually that will make that nice smooth ponytail first and then curl what's left, because what is the point of curling the whole head if you're going to put 90% of it into a sleek ponytail. So then that ponytail is secured and the ends of it curled, the top curled, and then you're working that braided addition. I'm pointing to the screen like you can see the braided addition hair. We work that in, and then any ends up left are that are left out, make sure it's curled and blended in with the rest of the hair. And then the top created it's a basically a pulled apart rope braid that is just pulled apart and then added texture spray and a little hair powder to pull it apart and make it soft. And then when we get her on the set, we'll arrange things, and then we use like a leaf blower to blow the hair a little bit. And I think we have two people, maybe one person with a little piece of cardboard wafting the hair in one direction, and another person with a leaf blower behind it to blow this movement into the hair. Because the movement that you see where those little pieces are in the wind, that's what brings the image to life. So that's the number one thing that I can say if you're going to create some images and you want them to feel a little more interesting editorial is to see if you can get some wind in the hair and add some movement to it.
I mean, who knew all of that was going on? If you've never worked with editorial hair, which it was a long, 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 long time ago for me. I mean, all of those things would be new to me, but who knew all of that? And even with your simple haircut, I believe, a good photo shoot can create movement that is unlikely with you just wearing that style walking down the street.
Oh, I agree.
When your client brings the picture and see how her hair does XYZ, and you're like, I see it. Yours isn't
Yeah.
gonna do that, but I see it. All righty, let's talk about
waves. Take your fingers and pinch the crest of the wave with your fingertip as you spray the hairspray to create individual separated ridges. You can also spray hairspray onto your brush to help you to mold the waves into shape.
I think this is a good one to pull in because I wanted to talk about your approach to educating other stylists on curly hair or just editorial hair, textured hair, all the fabrics of hair. For those interested in education, what are your methods, some topics you cover, and any unique techniques you emphasize in your classes?
I have to say, it's so, I can tell you why I chose this to talk about specifically. This video I specifically chose because I was teaching a class when I made this video. I was in a salon and we were talking about social media, right? And how to make a reel and how to make a, TikTok or whatever, how to build a video. So they were doing some things and they were taking pictures of this. This is a hairstylist. They were taking pictures of her hair. And I just wanted to show them how they could improve the image to make it more dynamic. And I was using some editorial techniques in a salon friendly style to help them, make the crest of the waves look better, bigger using hairspray and a brush, and to pull the crest of the waves out and spray them. And then when we got back to, I had someone film it and I was like, well, let's just use that and make a video out of it. And that way I can show you how easy it is to make a reel during the day when you're at work. And I made this whole reel in like 10 minutes. I put it together. I did the voiceover with them watching me. And I just, on my way home, at the airport, I posted this. It's got 20,000 views, and has multiple saves and shares. And so education doesn't have to be complicated. And don't have to overcomplicate your social media post either, because that was the whole point of this, was to create this social media post that would be easy and something fast. And you can they don't all have to be winners, right? It's kind of, you're playing the lotto with social media. It's like some stuff's going to take off and some's not. And you just got to keep putting coins in the slot machine. And so that's why I chose to share this one with you, because it was just it's kind of a inception of education, right? So I was educating and then educating about the education, and then it just took off. So it proved my point.
Oh, absolutely. And I know I'm new myself to social media as far as being active as a content
Hmm.
creator.
Yes.
And oh my goodness, the following doesn't always match the views, the likes, the comments, and it's all confusing. I'm still navigating my way through. I think I overcomplicate it probably more than I should, and probably need to get my little booty into one of your classes, but which I will do, I'm sure. But that's a really good tip, and I'm sure, like you say, it had a bunch of shares. You know, just that little post. So all of those students in that class, you just inspired them to grow their following just in that short little snippet.
Yeah, it's just, so I was like, "Oh, this one might make a good reel, so why don't you just film it really quick?" So anytime I don't know, my approach to education like that is just, the more you can do in the moment, to improve something, the better, you know? So it's just like, I saw them taking this photo and I was like, "Can I show you something really quick?" And I was like, "Actually, film me while I show them this because then we can use this to make the reel." And so it was just like education within education. There's always something you can learn from something.
And that's so cool.
And it,
What else is a part of your education platform? Like what else would you learn? Or what is your education platform? Do you have a
so
website? Are you all set up, or is this something you're entering into?
So I am a national training team artist for Matrix. So I work for Matrix and I educate their stylists in salons, but I also educate their new artists. So I help the new artists that are coming into the brand develop their facilitation skills so that they can go out into salons and share education with the rest of the network. And additionally, I work for Ulta Beauty. And so I educate stylists nationwide inside of Ulta Beauty. And I also educate stylists outside of Ulta Beauty on platforms like for like Premiere Orlando, ABS in Chicago. And then I also work on their in-store salon marketing campaigns and the marketing campaigns that you see in the stores across the nation. So I get my hand in a lot of cookie jars that way. I get to do a little bit of editorial. I do a lot of education, and then I service my guests behind the chair every single day.
Oh, perfect.
Hmm.
I love that. I want to give new stylists learning about advanced education an opportunity to learn where someone at your level gets your favorite training opportunities. Like who inspires you?
I get my inspiration from a lot of places, and I will say that my education comes from, I try to get my education from whatever the top most tier source is. I don't get a lot of chances to get myself educated as much anymore as I'm out educating other people. So last year, I took a 2-day hands-on styling course from Sharon Blaine. It was a very fundamental styling course. So it was how to do a wrap blow dry for a ponytail, how to do a ponytail. It was a lot of classical hairdressing skills that are getting lost in our industry, to be honest. Um, how to do a curling iron set. It felt like 2 days of back to the basics education, but on an elevated scale, right? So, Sharon Blaine is an amazing hairstylist. She has taught generations of people that your people will probably be looking up to. And so I encourage them to look for things that are hands-on, not just I think that the amount of education we have on social media is great, but it is not really education. It is a highlight of education. So if you find yourself gravitating towards one person because you like their style, you like what they do, then take their course or go into an in-person class with them. If you can get a hands-on class with them, even better, because there's no education better than a hands-on course. If you can only have access to the virtual education available to you, then you need to watch that education as if it was a hands-on in-person class. You need to have a mannequin set up, pause the video, do the step, watch the video, pause the video, and watch it over and over again and practice it over and over again. The best education is what you can get your hands on and what it makes the most sense for you financially. But the things that I find myself being more interested in and gravitating to now are not necessarily traditional hair education. I'm learning a lot about foam cap wigs from people who do cosplay because I'm finding that to be very interesting from an editorial perspective. Drag queen wigs, like wigs, a lot of wigs. I'm learning a lot about wigs right now and just different applications of wigs that aren't really traditional or not meant to be worn daily, not like daily wig wear, but more
Editorial.
fantasy and editorial
Yeah.
wigs. Yeah.
I can't think of his name, but there's a stylist on social media, and all he does are drag queen wigs.
It might be
And
Carl Brown. Carl
yes,
Brown. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, see, I
yes.
know because those are the kind of people that inspire me. It's like people like and Nisha hairstyling. She does a lot of beautiful wigs. She does Dolly Parton's hair, Dita Von Teese. Her wigs are at that same point at like Carl Brand, but like Annie T. Hart wigs. Um does some really crazy like in Marie Antoinette style
Yeah.
things that are large, advanced silhouettes that require cages and wire rigging. I've done a couple of drag queen wigs for friends. I'm just like dipping my toes in that water just to learn the skills a little bit.
Well, with what you've done so far, I can see that that's a natural progression for you to want to elevate, your editorial work and kind
Mhm.
of dive into more complex, type modalities.
Mhm.
And you being an educator, I'm sure you are an insider in said trends.
Mhm.
Are there any memorable transformations or client stories that you have had that have had a big impact on your career, Laura? Like
Oh
a
yeah.
relatable story that can provide some inspiration and a personal, just a little touch for our audience.
Yeah, I had this happened about 3 years ago, and it was like, "Okay, well, that's my mission now." I had someone come in, she had an appointment with another stylist in the salon, and that stylist was out sick. I was double booked all day, so I didn't have any space for her. So I offered to have my receptionist call around to find her an appointment somewhere. All she wanted was her roots touched up and a rod set. She was going on vacation the next day. So 2 hours later, she calls me back in tears because she went to that salon, the stylist took one look at her and said, "I can't do your hair." And I yeah, that face. I just was like, "What?" And she's like, "I called 3 other salons." She said she could find someone who could color her hair, but she couldn't find anyone who would be willing to color her hair and style it. All she wanted was a rod set, and I just could she was like, I can't, see paying to get my hair colored if I can't walk out with it styled the way I want it styled, you know? And I told her, I said, "You know what? Just come back up here. Come back up here. I'll figure it out. Wait, so you might have to be here for a little while. I'll get you worked in." Well, I didn't have an assistant at the time, so it was just me, but I made it work and I got her in. I got her color done. We got a rod set on. And, she's been coming to me ever since because it broke my heart. She was in tears. She's like, "I'm going on vacation. I just want to look good." And I'm like, it shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this hard to find someone so that you can feel your best. No one should be turned away. And I was like, that's my mission now. Is if you, no one should ever be turned away from any salon because of the texture of their hair. And so my goal is to get everyone that looks like me to be able to, at the minimum, do a rod set. Like if you can roll a perm, you can roll a rod set, and that's like
What does
become my
the
new
rod
mission.
set entail for those that may feel intimidated? Like, oh no, like what? I mean,
What's a
because
rod set? It's like,
hair is fabric, and if we're not
mhm.
used to manipulating a certain fabric, then I would see where you would kind of pull back and say, "Ooh, I don't think I'm capable," even though
Yeah,
should be, you're
you
not.
should
So
be
thank God
right.
you turned her away. And
It goes it goes back to a basic failure of cosmetology schools, right?
yes,
From the beginning, the education is lacking in the beginning of the education of our industry, and we're working hard to change that. I know, especially the L'Oreal Texture of Change initiative is to get it on the books in all 50 states that it should be required to learn texture education in all 50 states to pass the cosmetology state board. And that's not the case right now. So I think there's a handful of states that have signed it into legislation, but the goal is to get all 50 states.
for stylists who may be wanting to explore those multiple roles, such as what you're doing, how do you balance your hands-on work behind the chair with your role as an educator?
Yeah, so that's tough. I am in salon like 3 days a week, and then I educate on days I'm not in the salon. There are days when I work 6 days a week, and then there are weeks when, I'm just in the salon three days a week, and that's it. I may not have a class every single week, but there may be weeks when I have, I'm working 6 days. So it's the balance is not a perfect pie. It's like sometimes it's 90%, sometimes it's 40%. And, my guests they understand and they're very flexible. So I'm very flexible with them. So the days that I'm in the salon, I'm typically in the salon open to close. I'm there until the work is done. And we just do what it takes, to get done. But I have some non-negotiables, and I like to be home at least 1 week out of the month to be, home with my family, my husband, and my dogs and my cat. So I want to make sure that that happens. And there are months sometimes when that doesn't happen. So then I try to make sure other months I have more time at home. So it's rarely ever a perfect balance, but it just has to kind of all even out in the end.
Tell us about your recent trip to Japan, because I know when we were booking this episode, you told me, "Oh, I'm in Japan right now." I'm like, "Oh my God, that's amazing. I can't wait to hear about your trip and how it inspired your work behind the chair."
Yeah, so we this was just our annual family vacation. So it was just me and my husband, and Japan's been a bucket list item for both of us for a really long time. We're big anime nerds, and we love, just Japanese culture in general. And it's been on the list for a while, and we were able to make it happen this year. I put it on my manifestation board for 2024, and as soon as I had the money, I booked the tickets. So I think I the thing that inspired me the most, like I went to Harajuku, which is like a dream of mine since a little kid. If you're into fashion, like Harajuku street fashion is kind of where it's at in Japan. And just seeing all of the haircuts and how their color is. And I was even noticing just walking by, you're in the hair industry, you just notice stuff. So I'd walk by and see salons, how prevalent perm culture is there. Like the perms are everywhere. I could see people, getting perms, and I could see people with perms that have been grown out, and I was just like seeing, fun fantasy hair color, and a lot more like horizontal color patterns in hair. So like color blocking, but not vertical, like not like patches of color, but like done like color blocks in the bang and things like that. Really choppy. They call it a hime cut, where you have a really strong square fringe, and then the front of the hair is cut almost like a chin length bob, but then the rest of the hair is really long. That I saw a lot of that. It's called a hime, hime, bang. And then we went to we're kind of into like alternative music. So we went to a punk show, and I got really inspired by a lot of the punk hairstyles that I saw there at the punk show. Interesting color choices, and just, I don't know. It was just like, ooh, I can't wait to go home and do some things. So I'll probably be changing my color up pretty soon.
Yeah, so I'm glad you had an amazing time. Japan is on my list for sure in the near future, probably in the next year or two. So I'm excited now after hearing your travels about going. All right, so we know it is important to set goals. What goals or future projects do you have in the pipeline? And how do you see your career evolving from here?
Yeah, so a big goal of mine is international education. I would like to educate globally. As of now, I've only done education events in the US. I've done some marketing shoots internationally, but I haven't done anything educational wise on a global level. So I would love to do that. I want to be able to travel and educate. Um, I want to integrate basically my love for travel and my love of education and bring them together, and be able to travel like that for work, because I love to travel. So I love meeting stylists all over the world. So that's a huge goal of mine. And then other than that, I don't have any major projects on the horizon. I think I've been busy being busy, but this is the time of year when I really start to think about that. My birthday's next week, and so that's usually my signal to start planning. Okay, what's in store for next year? What do you want to do? And I want to start nailing that down, but I don't currently have any projects. The biggest goal I have is to continue to grow my own personal social media following. I did lose my account. I got hacked a couple of years ago and had to start over from scratch. And so I am taking that as an opportunity to rebuild it in a new and different way and reach a different hairstylists and different people with this new brand. So I'm
Oh,
excited
I
for
think
that.
I love that. That's perfect. I
Yeah.
definitely will be following the journey as I have so
Hmm.
far. It's been you're a great page to watch and be inspired by, which
Thank
brings
you.
me to something that I've added to the last few shows. I have a team of newbies. They are new hairdresser insiders where I send them the profiles of the guests that are going to appear on the show. And then they curate a list of questions that they'd want to know from that guest. So I'm going to read to you with done by Jordan. He goes by on the socials. His name is Jordan Pena. And I'm going to read to you, background noise and all, what say when he looked at and went over and reviewed your profile.
Okay.
He said, I'm interested in learning about your journey into Matrix. Did you, like most stylists, I assume, go on a speed date with almost every brand out there? Or was Matrix like a love at first sight for you?
Oh, so I have a lot of mentors who worked for Matrix, and that was sort of my introduction to Matrix. I went to one of their events, Destination, I think in 2019, and I got to meet a lot of the team, and it just felt like home. They were really like launching So Color Cult, and at that time I was doing a ton of fantasy hair color. So, um, meeting everyone there and just talking to people that were a part of the brand already, it felt like home to me. And so I didn't really go on a speed date with a lot of different brands. I just I really just locked in. I have worked for some other brands in the past, but not to the same extent that have worked with Matrix. So it was the first, major brand that I had worked with. So and I'm still with them today, and I love working with them.
Oh, I love that. I like Matrix. I'm learning
Yeah.
more things about Matrix, but so far,
Mhm.
so good. What's one piece of advice you wish you had known when you first started as we close?
One piece of advice that I wish I had when I started was to just like be patient. It takes 10 to 15 years to be an overnight success, and that there is a lot of hard work that goes into it. And that people aren't just kidding when, like, they're not gatekeeping when they say, I don't know how I got here, I just happened. Because the hard work puts you where the good luck can find you, and you just have to keep saying yes to everything, and you will eventually the right door will open.
Beautiful. I mean, perfectly said, which is one of my favorite things. I'm looking for new adjectives as well for next year, where I don't say perfectly said, beautifully, absolutely, 1,000%. I mean, I'm looking for that. Those are going to be my 2025 goals for Trendy with
Got
Kim.
get a thesaurus for Christmas. There you
Yes,
go.
yes, absolutely. Now, for my favorite part of the show is the 60-second blowout. And Laura, you are not absolved from this either. As long as we've been talking, I must do this. And what I've added to my 60-second blowout, because I am the queen of games in my personal life and now on my online life,
I
is
love it.
how do you like her?
Oh, gorgeous.
Go-to styling product.
Oh, my go-to styling product is the Matrix A Curl Can Dream Light Hold Gel.
Favorite place to travel for inspiration.
I'm just gonna have to give it up to Tokyo because I just got back.
Dream client, real or fictional?
Oh, dream client, real or fictional? It's probably, oh, this is so hard. I'm gonna say Dita Von Teese.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee all day.
Favorite hair trend right now?
Favorite hair trend right now is that like fox hair color. It's like blonde, copper, and dark.
Most challenging hair texture to work with?
I would say straight hair.
Favorite thing about Atlanta?
Favorite thing about Atlanta is all of the events. There's so many events all the time.
Most used tool in your kit?
My Dyson.
To show everyone how humble you are, make your silliest selfie face. Ah!
I'm
Awesome
very
sauce.
millennial.
I love that. You did such a great job answering those questions. You didn't get through them all, but that's okay because maybe sometime in the future you can come on and you can get a redo of that.
Yeah, it just means I have to come back, right?
That's what that means. So, where can the people find you, Laura?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram and TikTok at Laura Gunter Beauty.
Perfect. All righty, guys. Until next time, I enjoyed this interview. Again, thank you, Laura, for lending us your time. And I will see you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.